Let's get something straight right out of the chute. I'm a performer, not a guitar-playing, stiletto-wearing, glitter manicure-having cool performer, more like a nerd performer, also known as teacher's pet, brown noser, good girl, and many other names you all know, but it would be in poor taste to list here. School was my thing. I spent an embarrassing amount of time, counted in years, people, during my younger life, trying to make the grade both literally and figuratively. It only stands to reason that childbearing would be no different. During my last year of family medicine residency, my husband and I decided to have a baby. Achievement being my strong suit, we timed things perfectly, and our baby girl was born. Fast forward 2 years, and we became a family of 4. As we raised our daughters, I worked hard to dress them in adorable, complimentary outfits. My oldest spoke to adults as if she were 32 years old, and both of them could count to 10 by the time they were 2. I was getting the proverbial A+ I craved. I took great pride in showing off their cuteness or impressive memories to many friends and family. When we decided to add a 3rd child, things were different. No high honor roll for me. I flunked. I needed remediation after 2 consecutive miscarriages. I am sure many of you have suffered the pain of early pregnancy loss, the overwhelming sadness of the baby that would never be. This is not the story of our miscarriages, but it must be mentioned. If I hadn't flunked pregnancy number 3, meeting Mark would never have happened. I'll never forget the day we met our son Mark. Before that day, he was just one of my crazy, harebrained ideas hatched during a sleepless night. A cross-eyed little boy in state custody with a 1-page description of a lot of medical diagnoses. Turns out, he was the cross-eyed idea that my husband and I jumped on a plane across the country to meet, praying we would have the emotional fortitude to say no if Mark was too much. We drove our rental car with our rental car seat. Have you ever seen a rental car seat? To a tidy neighborhood of condos. At the home of Mark's foster mother, we nervously rang the bell and were eventually greeted by a thickly accented Nigerian woman who clearly adored our boy. After a few formalities with the caseworker, they handed us Mark, along with a duffel bag of supplies, and we left. We left. We just drove off with this kid. I have heard many parents describe that funny feeling that happens when we leave the hospital with our first newborn baby. I can safely say that leaving the hospital with my daughters didn't hold a candle to the feeling of driving away from a stranger's home in a strange city with a strange 10-month-old in a rental car. Surprised by our own boldness, we took this darling, Hispanic, cross-eyed baby with very little control over his own posture and did what any normal couple would have done. We went out for Mexican. Let's be clear. Someone just handed us a foster kid who was barely 6 months out from an emergency room visit where a gutsy and I hope well-paid neurosurgeon stuck a needle through his scalp into his brain to relieve pressure, and we took him to get strip mall Mexican food. Even funnier than that is that we just sat there in the restaurant, all cool-like, as if we were any family with a baby sitting in a restaurant eating refried beans. Mark then slept with us at the hotel that night, and by slept, I mean he howled at the top of his lungs most of the night. We finished our time together in a quick blur of a few days. Strict state laws prevented him from coming home with us at that time, but we welcomed him home forever in December later that year. Since then, being Mark's mom has been an adventure. He has a great big smile, long brown eyelashes, and the best sense of humor. He greets the start of almost every day with boisterous enthusiasm and persistence. The thing is, not everyone I meet gives me an A+ for Mark. Taking care of him is a lot of work. He has different abilities that are not like a typical child his age. His fine motor control is impaired, so he can be a mess when he eats. He does not use any words to communicate, so understanding what he needs can be a challenge to those who don't know him well. He has low vision, So he touches people and things to understand them, and licking them is not out of the question. I noticed that many people love to say they love Mark, but actions speak louder than words, like when someone decides your special needs child is too dangerous to join in around the snack table, the playground, or even Sunday school. I'll admit Mark not being welcomed in common childhood activities makes me angry. More importantly, it robs him of valuable learning and socialization, and other children are denied the opportunity to learn kindness and compassion towards individuals with disabilities. I am still haunted by the first time I felt the sting of being graded on Mark's behalf. I was bragging about my beautiful, strong, resilient boy to a future colleague, including our adoption story. I was silenced by the question, did you know ahead of time he was going to be, like that? The answer to the question was yes, but I could hardly find the breath to make a sound, let alone a reasonable answer. Saying no after we rang that doorbell and took our sweet-smelling baby into our arms for the first time was never an option. We never even considered looking back. His adoption was finalized in November of 2012. The sad truth is, those comments cut to a deep place in me that knows that I could have had that same thought in years past. I could have said something out loud, just as hurtful, about someone else's beautiful, strong, resilient boy, instinctively grading that child against the standard ruler in my mind. It has only been 3.5 short years since meeting Mark, and the changes in both of us have been vast. With 2 eye surgeries, his vision has improved dramatically, and he can now sit up much straighter to eat his refried beans. I now try harder to intentionally celebrate what makes each of my children unique and encourage their strengths and continued successes. We still pray daily for the emotional fortitude to parent these 3 precious children that have been entrusted to us. And if there's a next time, we'll take our own car seat.